We're now on Daf Mem Daled Amud Beis, and we're understanding why Rabbi Yirmiyah was upset and rejected the interpretation of the Brisa that was offered by Rav Yosef to interpret the Brisa in the light of the sheet of Rebbe. Harei log haba b'fnei atzmo d'lekuli ama matnosav shorolo. Wait a second. In the case of a log of shemen, he doesn't have to bring the log shemen together with the korban oshem. He can bring it 10 days down the line. Everybody's going to have to admit that if the avoda, the zrikas hadam of the korban oshem is not mat to the log, so what is mat to the log? It's going to have to be the matnosaf. It's going to have to be the application of the log onto the mizbeach. And nevertheless, lo mefaglimli, I'm going to prove to you from a brisa that there's no pigul. Now, why is there no pigul on the log if there's a matir and the log becomes a nitar, albeit not from the korban osham and its avoda, but from the matanos of the log onto the mizbeach? The sanya we learned in the brisa, log shemen shel mitzora chayovin aleha mishum pigul. Again, this is all Rabbi Meir, who holds that the log shemen is connected and is permitted by virtue of the avoda of the korban asham, that they should dam matirosa lebonos. Divrei Meir, omul Rabbi Meir, v'lo odam mevi ashamo achshav v'log mikan v'asora yomin. There's no need to bring the log together with the korban asham. So how can you tell me that the korban asham is connected to the log shemen in a way that it's matir log shemen, and therefore the pigul at the time of the zevach of the asham is going to extend the pigul to include the log shemen? That can't be. As we said on Omer Aleph, and we said it also 2 days ago, that Rabbi Meir only holds that the pigul extends from the korban asham over to the log shemen in a case where he opted to bring the log shemen together with the korban asham. But Enochinami, Rabbi Meir admits that if he brings the log shemen down the line, 10 days later, so today he brings the korban asham, and 10 days from now he'll bring the log shemen, then the pigul of the korban, of the avoda of the korban asham, would not in any way affect or include or impact on the log shemen. So what do we get from this brisa? We see, says Rabbi Yirmiyah, from this brisa that basically everybody agrees that although the matan hashemen al gabi mizbeach is matir the shirayim of the log for achilas kohanim, but nevertheless it's not pigul. So you cannot interpret the brisa in the light of Rebbe to say that, as Rebbe said, the matanos of the log on the mizbeach generate pigul on the shiorei halog. So now we go back to our original kasha, and Rabbi Yirmiyah is going to have to face this, that the beginning of the brisa seems to follow and relate or advocate in favor of the shita Rabbi Meir, and the last part of the brisa expresses the shita Rabbanan. Elam Rabbi Yirmiyah Liolam Rabbi Meir. The brisa from the beginning to end is to be attributed to Rabbi Meir. The Sami Vikan Nesachim. But take out that part of the brisa which says that in Nesachim there is no pigul. Because according to Rabbi Meir, if in an event he brings his korban and he accompanies his korban with Nesachim, then a machsheves pigul on the korban will impact on the Nesachim, and the Nesachim now will be included in the Chiv Kares of pigul. So basically, Rabbi Yirmiyah is sort of in a desperate situation in which he's forced to erase part of the brisa. That part about the Nesachim comes along Abaye, Liolam lo tesami. I don't want to change the brisa and drop part of the brisa. V'tana log haba ima asham v'hu adin l'nesachim habayim azeva. In other words, what we're going to do is we're going to add to the brisa, not subtract from the brisa. What are we going to add to this brisa? A distinction between two categories of nesachim. And that is that just like according to Rabbi Meir, if the korban asham of the mitzorah, b'yom ta'arasa, was accompanied by the log shemen, then the machsheves pigul of the avodas hakorban of asham is now going to impact and generate pigul on the log shemen. So too, in the case of nesachim, if the nesachim were brought as an accompaniment to the zevach, then nesachim aboim and zevach, the nesachim will be subject to pigul based on the machshava at the time that he does the avodah on the korban. And now we're going to add to the brisa that nesachim aboim b'fnei atzman, that if on the other hand he opts to bring his nesachim 10 days after he brought his korban, then in that case the nesachim are not subject to pigul, because even Rabbi Meir is moda that if he opts to bring the nesachim 10 days later, or in the case of the asham mitzorah, if he opts to bring the lug shemen 10 days later, there's no pigul neither on the nesachim nor on the log shemen. Now we go back to the Mishnah. Chatas ha'of dama matir es besor l'kohanim. Right? We said that the difference between olas ha'of, which is not given to the kohanim, and chatas ha'of, where part of it is burnt on the mizbech and part is given to the kohanim. And what's going to be matir, the basar of a chatas ha'of? Again, I don't know how much basar there is on this bird, but anyway, to the kohanim, it's going to be the dam, meaning the avodas hadam. Now, watch what happens. The kohanim are going to eat this bird. Where was the shechita? If the bird is dead, obviously, because you're doing the avodas hadam, there was never a shechita. All there was malika. How do we know, asks the Gemara, Minani Mili, that the kohanim are allowed to eat the basar of chatas ha'of, which is subject not to shechita, but to malika? In 1973, I came to Rav Soloveitchik Shir in February. And that was the year Rav Soloveitchik taught Masechta Chulin. When I came to the Shir Masechta Chulin, I think it was Daf Chaf Hey, the Rav was talking about Malika b'chatas ha'of. I had no clue what Malika was. I had no clue what a chatas was. I didn't even know what an oaf was. I was totally flabbergasted when I got off the plane and went into the shir. Anyway, so the Tani Levi is going to teach us, based on a brisa that he brought, how do we derive the conclusion that the kohanim will eat from the chatas ha'of, which was only subject to malika. The pasuk says, Kol korbanam, l'rabos log shemen shel mitzorah. Salketay techamina. I would have thought. Okay, so let's point out that this pasuk is dealing with matnas kuhuna, and that's in Bamidbar Perek Yud Ches, which I think is Pasha Shlach. And anyway, it says, Zei lecha mikodesh kadoshim, min ha'esh, a lot of words here in this pasuk, kol karbonim, that's the first time it says kol. Then it says l'chol minchasam. Another time, number 2, it says kol, and it says l'chol chatasam. Number 3, l'chol hashama. Number 4, asher yashivu li kodesh kadoshim lecha u'lebanecha. These are gifts that are given to the kohen. Lecha u'lebanecha, to you, Aaron, and to your children. So now we're going to take apart this pasuk, and each part of the pasuk is going to be marbe another matnas kahuna. The first one is called karbonim, is log shel shemen mitzorah. Salka daitachamina, since the pasuk says mina eish, and the strange thing about the log shemen is that it's not subject to eish. There's no burning of the shemen. Kosav achmana. High lav mosa mina eish. Right, the log shemen of mitzorah is not subject to fire. None of the oil is burned on the mizbeach. is therefore I would think that it's not considered a matnas kahuna, because matnas kahuna is only mina esh, as the pasuk says mina esh. Kamash malon. Therefore, I need the extra ribu of kol karbonim to include the log shemen in the matnas kahuna. And Tosas asks the obvious question: why did Torah have to drain me a cup and say mina esh, and then say kol karbonim? Leave out mina esh, and then I wouldn't need the drasha and the ribu of kol karbonim. Okay, Tosas leaves it as an open-ended question. Then it says l'chol minchosam. Another time it says l'chol l'rabos minchas omer minchas knos. Now minchas omer is brought on the 16th of Nisan in order to be matir chadash, and minchas knos is brought when the husband, after kini and stira, accuses his wife of adultery, and they bring a special mincha. And that mincha is called minchas knos, miloshan kina. Kina means he's jealous because she had a private meeting with another man. And in the cases of these two menachos, I don't know if these menachos belong to the Kohen. Why? The Torah says that when do we give the gifts to the Kohen? That's only when the Kohen, through his achila, will generate kapara. But minchas haomer lahatir asya. It's coming to be matir chadash. There's no element of kapara here. Uminchas knos levaravon kaasya. It's coming to clarify whether she was guilty as accused or innocent. And therefore, in these two menachos, which have no relationship to kapara, I would think that they're not included in matnas kahuna. Kol mashmalan, they're included. Now we go to the next part of the pasuk. Again, the word l'kol chatosam, l'rabos chatas ha'of. That means we give the kohanim the basar of the chatas ha'of. Where's the shchita? If not for the extra ribui to include chatas ha'of in matnas kahuna, I would think, what are the kohanim going to do with the meat of the chatas? There was no shchita. It's nevela. It's an animal that's dead without shchita. Kamash malan. Therefore, we need the special pasuk of lechol chatosas v'marbe, that the malika itself is shchita, which is mind-boggling when you think about it. You know, you have a bird here that died without shchita, and you're allowed to eat its meat. The kohanim are allowed to eat its meat. Why? Because malika, xeris hakosim, substitutes for shchita. It reminds me of, what's it called? If the animal is pregnant and you shech the mother, then the vlad doesn't need shchita. L'chol hashamam l'rabos asham nazir v'asham mitzor. Again, another two cases of karbanos which are not brought for the sake of kapara. Right? What's the purpose of bringing an asham nazir? Is he wants to finish up his nazirus and go back to being a rank and file citizen, so he brings a karban asham. So that karban asham doesn't have an element of kapara. It's only lahachshir. Actually, I think the word lahachshir, he means letahir. I'm not sure. Let's see. Oh, I see. Yeah, this is Yomi HaRishonim Yiplu, meaning he was a Nazir. Let's say he took upon himself 30 days of Nazirus. After 15 days, he contracted Tumah. So he's got to start his Nazirus all over again. But first, he has to bring his karban asham. And what's asham? And what's the asham mitzorah? Again, part of the Torah of mitzorah is that he brings a karban asham, but it's not for the purpose of kapar. In fact, he's got to bring a chatas as well for the purpose of kapar. Kamash malan. Therefore, the pasuk has to tell me that even in the cases of Asham Nazir and Asham Mitzorah, the Kohanim are still granted the basar and it's matnas kahun. Frekti Gemara Asham Mitzorah behedjek sivbei. The Torah says explicitly in the parsha of Asham Mitzorah in Vayikra Yudalit, it says ki kachatos ha'asham hu la kohen, that the chatos and the asham have the same dinim of la kohen, that just like we give the basar of chatos to the kohen, so too in the case of an asham, and we're talking here about asham mitzorah, we give it to this. Ella, therefore we have to substitute ella rabos asham nazir ke asham mitzorah. In other words, we want to know whether asham nazir should have the same din as asham mitzorah, despite the fact that the asham nazir is lahachshir and it's not coming as a kapara. Asher yashivu ze gezel aker. What's going on over here? somebody stole from a ger and returns the object to the ger, but the ger died. And now there are no Yarshim. There's no one to inherit the ger. So the Torah establishes that object that's returned, that stolen object that's returned to the ger, and the ger is no longer alive, is now given over to the Kohen. And what does it mean when the Torah says lechahi? What's the chiddush of lecha? It's yours. Shalcha afilu lekadish bo es ha'isha. No, this is not part of Hakrovas Carbon. This is not like, we're giving it over to the Kohen just for purposes of, I don't know what, being magdid. It's like Hegdish. No. This is private property, like any private property. It's a din mammon. If it's a din mammon, he can be Makadish and Isha with it. Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Lezer, Omer Mishum, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Pigel b'davar shenas. Oh, okay. So now we have Rabbi Lezer's Shita, that the pigel has to be during an avodas chutz for a chutz, or avodas pnim for avodas pnim, but not avodas chutz for pnim or avodas pnim for chutz. B'davar shenase b'chutz, pigel b'davar shenase b'pnim lo pigel. Right? If it's, let's say, chatos pnimis, right? So he had a machsheves pigel at the time of the shechita outside of the heichal, and he had in mind for the, let's say, for the parts of the korban chatos that have to be brought on the mizbeach hapnimi, that's not pigel. Ketzad hoya omi bachutz, right? He's outside the heichal. Right, he's in the Azara, and he does the shechita of Echatas Hapnimis, and he declares Hareini Shochit Lahazos Dama B'Noba B'Lemachar. He has a machsheves chutzes man of pigul on the Hazoyas Adam. The Hazoyas Adam of Echatas Hapnimis is going to be done on the Mizbeach Hapnimi, and now he's doing the Avoda Bachutz, low pigul, that's not pigul, or alternatively. Right, because machsheves for chutz v'dor nasa b'fnim lo pigul. Hoya omed, here's another case. Hoya omed b'fnim, he's standing inside the heichal, and he's inside the heichal, and he says, Hareini maza, I'm doing the hazoya of the dam of the chatos. Almanas lahakter emurim, and the haktaras emurim is going to be done, or the shvicha shirayim bachutz is lo havi pigol. Why? Shemachshava b'fnim b'davar shenasa b'chutz eino mefagel. Also, what would be the case of pigol with regard to a chatas hapnimis if hoya omi bachutz, he's outside of the heichal. The Omer, and he declares Hareini shochet lishpoch shirayim, again. And where is the shvicha shirayim? It's on the mizbeach hachitzon. So therefore, you have a machsheves pigul b'shas avoda b'chutz for something that's going to be done b'chutz. Oh, lahakter emurim l'mocher. The haktaras emurim of the chatas haprimis is done on the mizbeach hachitzon pigul. Shemachshava b'chutz b'davar shenasa b'chutz. That is pigul. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Ma'ikra. What's the pasuk from which Rabbi Elazar derived this conclusion? Kasha Yura Mishar Zevachim, a very strange pasuk. Well, what's going on over here? We're talking about the parsha of the Chatos and the Haktorah Simurim of the Chatos, and all of a sudden it says Kasha Yura Mishar Zevachim. What is it doing over here? Makish par koi Mashiach. Oh. So this parsha of Chatas Primis is in the parsha of a Kohen Mashiach who gave an erroneous ruling, and he violated that erroneous ruling, and he has to bring a Chatos, par lechatos, and it's equating now that par lechatos with the shor of Shlomim. In the case of Shlomim, everything from A to Z, from soup to nuts is done on the Mizbeach HaChitzon is Af Par Koi Mashiach. When do we have a pigul? It's got to be similar to the shor of Zevach Shlomim, Achu Machshavosam Masav al mizbeach hachitzon. Rav Nachman, Rav Barafu, Rav Halacha Kreblozer Shavim Mishum Rav Yossi. That pigul only applies in an avodas chutz for an avodas chutz or avodas pim for os pim. Rav, I don't get it, says Rav. Here we turn to Daf Memhei Hilchas Sola Mashiach. I mean, we don't have a Beis Hamikdash here. We don't have pigul. Why do you have to tell me laws and paskin shilas with regard to pigul? Amalei Abai, I don't get it. Elamiata kol shchitas kodshim lo listening. Maybe we shouldn't learn Masechtas Zevachim. Well, we've been learning this Masechta for 45 days already. What do you mean we shouldn't learn Masechta? Well, what are you going to get out of Masechta Zevachim? There's no Beis Hamikdash. Maybe we shouldn't learn it. It's only relevant to when Mashiach comes. Ella, but rather says Abai, that's obviously not true. Ella drosh v'kabel schar. Hakinami drosh v'kabel schar. Says Rava, you know what I meant? I didn't mean that we don't learn the laws of Kodshim. I don't think we have to paskin on the laws of Kodshim. Hachi kaminala. Hilchas halamali. Why do you have to give me a ruling la halacha? We're not writing a Shulchan Aruch now for the laws of Kodshim. When it becomes relevant after Shibana b'Beis Hamikdash may remain, then we'll paskin shilas in Kodshim. And Lishnachrina, slightly different version. Amalei Rava said to Abaye, halacha kamina. What I meant to say is that if you have a ruling that's practical in halacha, and it's only relevant to Hilchas Mashiach after the Beis Hamikdash is this, we don't have to paskin those shilas. So this leads us to the Mishnah here on Daf Mem Hey. I wish you a great day. Thank you so much.